Hi YouTube, I am back. I'm 2 weeks late on making a new video. I just really want to make good content, and so I wasn't feeling great for the last little bit, so I decided to just take a break, and so I hope everybody understands. And this week's video is going to be a difficult one, and I just wanted to be in the right mindset to share what I'm going to share or what I'm going to talk about. I am back in my parents' house again. I got my doggy, well, my parents' doggy to the right. That's Marty. He classically just sits and stares out the window. So if you hear some noises, that will be him. All right, so this video is going to be about getting unofficially diagnosed with Asperger's or autism or ASD. Yeah, I don't really have much knowledge or the politics on which terms they use. I was told that Asperger's is an outdated term now, but when I got diagnosed, the term she used was Asperger's, and that's kind of how I found a lot of the information, was Googling women with Asperger's or asking women. So I got diagnosed 2 years ago almost, and I pretty well haven't told very many people. I did tell my family and my partner, but I haven't really told many friends. And so that's why this video is a little bit maybe awkward or tough, because I wouldn't say that I am in denial about it, but there's just so much stigma around it that I don't talk about it often. I do agree that I have Asperger's or autism, but a lot of people do not. So that is where there's just a lot of misunderstanding of the spectrum. There was something I was gonna say on top of that. I'm just gonna ramble in this video because I didn't really prepare notes. I never do. I just kind of talk and I just go with it. So, yeah, I just wanted to share this, and I think it's a little bit maybe weird for me to just go public with it, but I want to create a community, and I've already just been loving my community of my functional neurological people, and that like took courage to share. And so I think sharing this, I'll be able to connect with more people. Yeah, so what happened was, oh gosh, I could just, yeah, okay. Let's go back a little bit. So I've always been a very anxious, shy, kind of strange kid. I've struggled all my life. I struggled a lot in high school with fitting in and having friends and just making the right choices. I really suffered by the end of high school, just did not want to go to school. I had very, very bad anxiety, depression, and like could not figure out what was wrong. I couldn't take antidepressants because my brain was just so sensitive. And then as I continued out of high school, I was really anxious, and so I couldn't get a job, and so I just went right into hairdressing school, and that was horrifying. It was such a hard experience. That is where I really learned about my workplace anxiety and just being around strangers and just not being able to function. I did pass, and technically I'm a certified hairdresser, but I struggled and fought so much to not have to talk to strangers and deal with money and all that stuff. It was so challenging for me. And then after that, I again really struggled with driving and getting a job and just being in a workplace, and I had really bad anxiety and depression. And so it took me a really long time. Finally seen multiple counselors since I was like 15. I did so much therapy and work, and I finally did start to work, but again, I couldn't work more than part-time because I just had so much anxiety and stress, and like work would just burn me out so much. And it just, even if I had like a day off before I went to my next shift, I would be so anxious all day that day before going to work, and that just has never gone away. I've tried multiple jobs. All of them I had different struggles with. And then the job that I was working recently was just car wash, because it was really simple for my brain, and like I didn't have to deal with people. Unfortunately, there ended up being a lot of driving, and that started to add a lot of stress. Anyways, so throughout my life, I just had a lot of anxiety. I also went away to school that lived on my own, and that was challenging in its own way. I wanted to do a full course load and I couldn't, and like I was just struggling so much to keep my grades together. And then I ended up doing like counseling twice a week. I did group therapy, and then I saw just a counselor. And at that point I didn't really have any diagnosis. Like my family doctor said, like, you have like generalized anxiety, but nothing serious. And then I saw a psychiatrist in Prince George, and they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, which I've heard can be a misdiagnosis sometimes when you have autism. And so, and it was bipolar type 2. So I don't know. And so I just kept struggling, and I couldn't find anything that helped me. I just felt so stuck, and like no one understood what I was going through, and I was so different from everybody, and I still feel that way, but starting to understand things a lot more. But so I finally saw a psychiatrist in Terrace, and within like a few minutes of talking to her kind of about my story, she was like, have you like heard of Asperger's, or like ever thought, autism? And I was like, I do not have autism, because I used to work with special needs kids, and they had, on the spectrum of autism, they were like nonverbal and struggled differently than I do. And so, I contributed to that stigma of like, autism looks like this. And so we kind of talked, and she said, it's quite common for people, especially women with autism, to mask or chameleon throughout their younger years, and then in adulthood start to struggle a lot. And you go to see you try different treatments, and you try to get a diagnosis of what is going on, but you never really find anything, and medication doesn't work for you because your brain is quite sensitive. And so we kind of talked about it, and she just said, like, you really fit the part, like, why don't you do some research and then come talk to me about it, and let's go from there. So I did a bunch of research, and I can't remember what I looked up, but she gave me a bunch of videos to watch, and then I looked up like Aspian women, like traits, and like just related to it a lot. And so after that, I went back and I talked to her, and I said, yeah, this is really strange to finally find something that fits me. And then she said, okay, so I'm comfortable with saying like that's what you have. I will like talk to your doctor. But then she said, I can't, or she doesn't have the credentials to diagnose autism. But she said, I've worked with a lot of autistic people, and whatever. So I do not have official diagnosis. And so after that, I was so bombarded with like, okay, I have this label, but now I don't know what to do with it, because like we agreed that I wasn't going to do medication because I'm very sensitive to it. But then I didn't know, like, yeah, I have a label, but what now? And so it took a long time. That's why 2 years in the making. I'm finally like starting to tell people, but I'm very careful because there is a huge stigma, and I'm still learning so much about myself because all my life I just like was the way I was because I was that way, and that just made sense to me, and it didn't, I don't know, there was nothing wrong, like I was just that way. And now it's just a bunch of little things that make a picture, and then I'll be doing something and I'm like, I'm doing that because, of this, or like I have a hard time with like transitions because of this. And so like if you look at me as a person, maybe you wouldn't like label me as that, but I struggle so much with just normal life, like working and trying to keep a routine and all of these things. And so she also explained to me like where I was on the spectrum, and that's why I have Asperger's. And because that's what I was like, I thought that like autism was when you were you couldn't read people very well. Well, that's what I thought Asperger's was, and that you're kind of blunt and your social skills were quite bad. And she said that that's like one side of the spectrum, but like the other side is that you're extremely aware and oversensitive, and just almost like a highly sensitive person. And that is me. And so everything is just overwhelming and exhausting. Like grocery shopping, being around other people, I just get so exhausted and overwhelmed, and I have meltdowns. I didn't know that that's what they were. I just thought that they were like horrible panic attacks. And there's so much, like I could say so much on this topic. But yeah, it's just taken so long to try and figure myself out and what I need, and also like how to help my partner help me, because I'm trying to change, and also like change the way that I do things so that I'm more comfortable, like wearing earplugs in public, and not going to the store at a certain time, or bringing someone to the store with me. Yeah, and just like having like time to recharge my battery, but also like I'm noticing like being touched, I don't like that often. Just so many things that I ignored for a really long time. Like I just was always consistently anxious all the time, and I kind of just got used to it. And then I realized that like trying to be normal or whatever that meant was really impacting me. And so I tried to change so that I am more comfortable and that I can be who I am. The term like unmasking and not being a chameleon is something that I am trying to work on. It's really hard living in a remote area up north in Canada, BC, because there's not a lot of people to connect with. And so that's something that I really do struggle with. But in my lifetime, I have connected with people that were autistic, and that I was friends with, and they were some of the best people that I loved so much, and I really connected with them, and we just got along so well. Yeah, and so now 2 years later, I have functional neurological disorder, and my psychiatrist thinks that I got that because I spent so much time ignoring my anxiety, my stress, that it has now converted into physical stress. And I'm going to make a different video about the relationship between autism and functional neurological disorder, because I think it's quite interesting. So yeah, I'll leave that for another video. Yeah, so I am now fighting to get a official diagnosis. It is hard. Again, I said to live in a small town. I have to go to a city, because I can't pay for a private one because it's like $3,000 and that's just not going to happen. So yeah, I've been talking about it with my psychiatrist for a while. It's just challenging because my family doctor does not believe that I have autism. And that's challenging for me because I don't share everything with him because I just don't feel we see eye to eye, and I only see him if I like really need to. And so it's hard, and I just really hope that she vouches because I believe that he needs to send the referral for me to go and get a diagnosis. Yeah, I don't know. To some people, it's not important to them whether or not they have a diagnosis. They're just happy knowing, themselves. But for me, because there is maybe a link between the functional neurological disorder and the autism, and I would just like to know, yeah, it's just important to me. I struggle a lot in everyday life, and so I think that if I could have the services would be really nice. Yeah. Anyways, I don't really have too much more to say. I've kind of just rambled, and I hope this video is maybe helpful to some people. I think I wanted to start with this video, and then I think I'm going to make a series of videos on autism and how, yeah, just my experience with it, because everybody's experience is different. And I think that is where it's really helpful in the community, because that's kind of how I got to know and learn about myself, is by watching videos from other autistic people, and like on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and being like, okay, yeah, I do connect with that. Like, that makes sense to me. Maybe I am autistic, and now I'm like, okay, I've come to terms and have accepted it. So, yes, this was a long video. Thank you for watching. I would love to hear other people's stories down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like my eyelashes, give me a thumbs up. I just got a new fill with blue. It's a fun little like self-care, so I like them. Yeah. Oh, and subscribe if you want to keep hearing and seeing me and going on my journey with me through life. We'll see you next time.